Yo, History Squad. We're rolling back to the early 700s, a time when Spain was in utter chaos. Picture a land where the once great Visigothic Kingdom was crumbling under the weight of corruption, endless civil wars, and brutal oppression. The rulers were so caught up in infighting that they neglected the suffering of non-Catholic Christians and Jews, leaving ordinary people desperate for change. Meanwhile, far across the Mediterranean, the Muslim Umayyad Caliphate was booming, spreading law, order, and prosperity from Arabia to North Africa. In the midst of this turmoil, a bold and rebellious figure emerged. Count Julian, a disgruntled Visigoth noble with a deep-seated grudge against his own king, Roderic, decided that enough was enough. Instead of confronting Roderic alone, Julian made a wild, game-changing move. He reached out to the powerful Muslims for help. Big mistake, Roderic, history would later echo, as the stage was set for a conquest that would rewrite Spain's destiny. Governor Musa ibn Nusayr, the shrewd North African leader overseeing Muslim interests, saw a golden opportunity in Julian's plea. He dispatched his most trusted general, the fierce and fearless Tariq Ibn Ziyad, with a contingent of 7,000 troops. Tariq's mission? To check things out on Spanish soil and pave the way for a revolution that would change the course of history. Landing at Gibraltar, aptly named Jabal Tariq, or Tariq's Mountain, in 711 AD, Tariq wasted no time. In an act that would cement his place in legend, he ordered his men to burn their ships. With flames consuming the vessels behind them, his troops were left with no option but to fight, for retreat was not an option. As the orange glow of the inferno danced on their determined faces, Tariq bellowed, "The sea is behind you, and the enemy is in front. There is no way out except victory." With their backs against the wall, his soldiers embraced their fate, knowing that failure was not an option. The stage was now set for a battle that would resonate through the ages. The Battle of Guadalete, the turning point. Yo, History Squad. It's the summer of 711 AD, and the heat isn't just in the air, it's on the battlefield. Tariq's lean but lethal force of 7,000 men was about to clash with the colossal army of King Roderic, which numbered over 30,000. Roderic, ever the pompous ruler, arrived on the field like a final boss in a video game, adorned in a golden crown, mounted on an elaborately decorated horse that looked more like a regal chariot than a steed, and flanked by an intimidating host of warriors. But here's the kicker. Despite his impressive numbers, Roderic's army was riddled with internal strife. Loyalty was a rare commodity. Many of his commanders harbored deep resentment, their allegiances already wavering. Tariq, a master of both tactics and psychology, knew that brute force was not enough. Instead, he unleashed a multi-pronged strategy, hit-and-run tactics to wear down the heavily armored Visigoth soldiers, rapid cavalry maneuvers that allowed his nimble troops to outflank and confuse the enemy, psychological warfare, maintaining relentless pressure and waiting for that crucial moment of betrayal. Then, like a bolt from the blue, the unexpected happened. Some of Roderic's very own men, loyalty shattered by internal discord, turned traitor mid-battle. Their betrayal shattered the Visigothic lines, plunging Roderic's forces into chaos. After several grueling days of combat, the once mighty king vanished from the battlefield. Some accounts say he was killed in the melee, others claim he drowned while trying to escape the carnage. Whatever the case, without their leader, the Visigoth army disintegrated like a fragile sandcastle under the relentless tide. Tariq seized the moment. With the Visigoths in disarray, he pressed on, his forces moving like a tidal wave through the broken remnants of an empire. City after city fell in rapid succession, each conquest a domino that brought Spain ever closer to a new era. And believe it or not, this monumental victory was only the beginning of what would be a seismic shift in Spanish history. Yo, History Squad. With the Visigothic regime in ruins, Tariq wasn't about to let momentum die. He divided his forces and embarked on a lightning-quick campaign that swept across the entire Iberian Peninsula. His strategy was as bold as it was efficient. Córdoba? Taken without a fight. Its people, already disillusioned by years of harsh Visigothic rule, offered little resistance. Granada? Another swift, decisive win. Its defenses crumbled before the determined advance of Muslim soldiers. Toledo, the Visigothic capital? Its rulers, seeing the writing on the wall, abandoned the city in a hasty retreat, leaving it to be claimed without bloodshed. But Tariq wasn't the only one rewriting history. Sensing the unprecedented success of the initial invasion, Governor Musa ibn Nusair decided to join the fray. In 712 AD, he arrived with a fresh, formidable force of 18,000 troops. With reinforcements pouring in, the Muslim armies surged further, sweeping through Seville, Merida, and pushing their advantage deep into northern Spain. By 718 AD, nearly every inch of the Iberian Peninsula was under Muslim control. In just 7 years, what had once been a fractured and beleaguered land transformed into a thriving, expansive empire. But the conquest wasn't solely about military might. There was a visionary element at work. These conquerors were not here to raze everything to the ground. They had plans to rebuild, to innovate, and to forge a new society. Why did so many Spaniards convert to Islam? Yo, History Squad. Here's where it gets really interesting. Typically, conquerors force conversion through fear and coercion. Not in this case. Instead, the Muslim rulers of Spain took a radically different approach that won the hearts and minds of the local population. Under the harsh rule of the Visigoths, Jews and non-Catholic Christians had suffered endless persecution. Their lives were burdened by oppressive taxes and constant discrimination. But when the Muslims took over, they introduced a policy known as dhimma, a system that allowed people to keep their own faith while paying a modest tax known as jizya. And guess what? That tax was significantly lower than the brutal levies imposed by the previous regime. This relative tolerance led to a profound shift in the social fabric of Spain. Converting to Islam wasn't forced. It was an attractive option for many because it offered tangible benefits. Lower taxes meant more disposable income, enhanced opportunities for social mobility and access to better jobs and land, legal rights and protection that allowed people to live without the constant fear of persecution. Gradually, a remarkable transformation took place. Spaniards, drawn by the promise of a better life, began to embrace Islam voluntarily. Over time, this shift wasn't merely about religion. It was about creating a society where everyone had the chance to thrive. The Golden Age of Al-Andalus, the most advanced civilization in Europe. Yo, History Squad. After the conquest, Spain evolved into something truly extraordinary. Al-Andalus, one of the most advanced civilizations in all of medieval Europe. While much of Europe was still languishing in the Dark Ages, Al-Andalus shone like a beacon of progress and enlightenment. In cities like Córdoba, Seville, and Granada, the effects of this transformation were evident in every aspect of life. Infrastructure. Imagine streets lit by streetlights, paved roads stretching across bustling cities, and sophisticated systems of running water and public baths that were the envy of the continent. Learning and innovation. Córdoba, the capital, boasted over 70 libraries brimming with knowledge. While other parts of Europe struggled with scarce educational resources, Al-Andalus was a thriving hub of science, medicine, and philosophy. Here, scholars engaged in groundbreaking work in fields as varied as algebra, astronomy, and navigation, a foundation that would later spark the age of exploration. Healthcare and science. Picture doctors performing intricate surgeries using techniques and tools far ahead of their time, while European counterparts were still relying on superstition and rudimentary methods. Cultural harmony. Perhaps the most remarkable achievement was the coexistence of Muslims, Jews, and Christians. Instead of clashing, these communities collaborated, exchanging ideas and sharing their unique perspectives. This melting pot of cultures resulted in innovations that would have a profound and lasting impact on the entire world. The transformation of Spain under Muslim rule was nothing short of revolutionary. Córdoba, in particular, emerged as a metropolis of unrivaled splendor. With a population estimated at over 500,000, compared to a mere 10,000 in many contemporary European cities, Córdoba was a center of commerce, art, and intellectual achievement. It was, in many ways, a living, breathing university where knowledge flowed freely and every street corner buzzed with ideas. But as luminous as the golden age of Al-Andalus was, the story doesn't end here. For all its brilliance, this era of enlightenment was not destined to last forever. Dark clouds were gathering on the horizon, and a violent storm would eventually shatter this dream of unity and progress. Yo, History Squad. That's the epic saga of how Muslims invaded, conquered, and transformed Spain. From the fiery determination of Tariq Ibn Ziyad, burning his ships to eliminate retreat, to the strategic genius at the Battle of Guadalete, every moment was a step toward building an empire that would light up the medieval world. We've seen how, against a backdrop of oppression and despair, a new system of governance and tolerance not only reshaped society but also ignited a cultural and scientific revolution. Al-Andalus became a beacon of progress, a place where diverse communities worked together to push the boundaries of what was possible. But here's the catch. This golden age was fragile. The seeds of internal division, external pressures, and shifting alliances would eventually lead to one of the darkest chapters in Spanish history. Next time, we're diving deep into the fall of Al-Andalus and the tragic turn of events that led to the decline of this magnificent civilization. Stay locked in, History Squad, because the story of Muslim Spain is far from over, and the next chapter will blow your mind. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, stay curious.